Tonight we're here to talk about taxes. And the difference between what we're going to be spending the next hour doing versus what a lot of people do is we're going to try to educate ourselves, understand the tax, and learn how to reduce the tax burden in your life. What we're not going to do tonight is moan, groan, and complain about taxes, because that does nothing for you. So, let's get started. First thing, the types of taxes. I want to make the point that there are many, many taxes that are part of your existence as a U.S. citizen. Most of the time when you hear people talk about taxes, they're talking about income taxes. We're looking at federal, state, and city income tax. When we think about income tax, we're talking about earned income, your job. So, a portion of your earned income is going to be taxed. Federal, state, although not all states have income tax, and city. Some cities have income tax. You could be paying federal, state, and city, so you always want to know what is the tax situation in the city that you're going to be living in, as well as the state. They usually run in progressive ranges, and this is where I'm going to go online and show you a few things. But keep these two numbers in mind, 10,000 and 20,000. The first $10,000 you earn as an individual, and you're your own person, you're going to file your own taxes, nobody's claiming you as a dependent. The first $10,000, you pay no tax on, no income tax, no federal income tax. If you're married, you and the Mrs. or the Mr., 20,000. So when we see these numbers, I want you to put those numbers in front of them. And we'll get to that. Let's see here. Could I get some help with the lights, please? Thanks, sir. Give the computer a moment here, but I'm going to be taking you to some sites that I'll be sharing with you via email tomorrow with the recap. Come on, computer. Come on, baby. Okay. So what are we looking at here? This is a tax table for individual taxpayers. As an individual, this is not married. We can go up and see that there's tax tables for married people filing jointly, head of household, individual. Now, here's where we're going to start with. See that number says 0 to 8,925. I want you, as an individual, to put 10,000 in front of that. Notice the word taxable income. Not income, but taxable. The first $10,000 you make is not taxed. Because, in this given year, your standard deduction is $6,100. And your personal exemption is $3,900. Add those two up, you get $10,000. So at a minimum, you have a $10,000 deduction, meaning $10,000 of income will not be taxed. If you have more deductions, which we'll cover, even more tax will be taken off. So as we go back up here to the individuals, when we say a progressive tax system, what that means is from $10,000 to $18,925, you will pay 10% tax. You, Donald Trump, Warren Buffett, anybody who has earned income will pay 10% tax on that first amount of money. After you get past that, and you've paid $892.50, then you enter the 15% tax bracket. Then you're going to be taxed at 15% in that range. Again, put 10,000 in front of it. If you go beyond 36,250, or in reality terms, 46,250, then you're going to enter the 25% bracket. And then, of course, you go 28, 33, 35, and this year they added the 39.6% bracket for the 400,000 and plus income people. Do I have anybody here made over 400,000? No? Okay. So, what is all this kind of meant to describe? Well, the progressive system. As you make more money, your money will be taxed at a greater rate. So what I'm going to show you tonight is how to reduce the amount of tax burden on you. One of the ideal ways to reduce your taxes is tax credits. A tax deduction reduces your taxes on how much you make. A tax credit actually reduces your taxes owed dollar for dollar. Tax credits are a much better deal for you. Down here we're looking at a few. The adoption credit, child tax credit, American Opportunity Credit, which can apply to many of you, used to be called the Hope Scholarship Credit. It talks about different numbers. You have the Earned Income Credit. If I go to a different site, we also have the Savers Credit, which I think is wonderful. What does this mean? If you make under $35,000, $35,500 to be exact, and you save $2,000 into a 401k or a Roth IRA or a TSP, 50% of that will apply for credit. Uncle Sam will give you back $1,000 for saving $2,000. Think about that, folks. That is basically getting $1,000 to save for your future. That is a wonderful opportunity for low-income people. And generally speaking, college students fall in that category. Congratulations. Now, if you go up in income, you still get the credit, just not to the extent that maybe you'll apply for the lower income people. So, be aware of that tax credit. Generally speaking, nobody's going to walk up to your door and start teaching you about how to reduce your tax burden. Yes, ma'am?
When you are putting your money into your 401k and let's say your company matches. My company matches 6%. So I put in X amount each paycheck and then they match 6%, at minimum 6%. By the end of the year, let's say joint, I have $2,000 in my 401k. Will I still be able to qualify for the Savers Tax Credit, or is it only myself that is
Only you, but you would still get, let's say, half of that. Let's say you put in $1,600, you would get a credit of $800. Still a wonderful deal. So, to me, this is one of the best tax credits. This is a non-refundable tax credit. Refundable versus non-refundable. Refundable means They will give you money even if you owe no tax. The earned income credit would be an example of a refundable credit. They're going to give you money to live. You actually get, say, $1,000 or $1,200. So there are refundable credits that can also apply. Here is a brief list of different non-refundable and refundable tax credits that apply to you. And all it takes is a basic Google search in the beginning of any year as you look at your tax situation. The smart citizen puts together a tax plan at the beginning of the year, not at the end. Meaning, you identify what opportunities you have to reduce your taxes at the beginning of the year, live your life during that year, understanding the tax situation, looking to reduce your tax burden, so at the end of the year, you've done just that. Rather than wait until the end of the year, plop your tax situation in front of some person at Walmart and say, give me a refund. That's not the way to do it. So, that's a list of some of the tax credits. And if they apply to you, by all means, use them. So we go back to our tax tables. Keep in mind these tax tables change from year to year. And as you see with the married filing jointly, most of the income levels are basically doubled. Okay, lights please. Progressive tax system. Understand your deductions, whether you're a single or a married person filing jointly. Understand that you're going to have deductions prior to your money being taxed. So really, I want you to walk away tonight knowing that. Just because you make $1 doesn't mean you're going to be taxed 10% on that dollar. You're going to have to make $10,000 and one to start being taxed. How do you reduce your taxes? Your income taxes. Invest in a traditional retirement plan, just like you talked about, that 401k. You can reduce your taxes in a traditional 401k. But we talked about retirement week, right? Investing in retirement accounts. If you're offered a Roth retirement account versus a traditional, we only look at the traditional if we're actually getting any tax benefits. If we're not going to pay tax, we want to put our money in that Roth 401k. Because there is no tax benefit, because we don't make any money, or not enough money. But this is one of the easiest ways for you to reduce your taxes immediately as you get that first big job. You're getting a nice paycheck, immediately start putting money in there, immediately start reducing how much tax you pay, federal and state, and maybe city. Another way, of course, is to focus on the credits over the deductions. If you look at your 1040, you'll see the deductions are primarily on the first page, and the credits are on the top of the second page. Now, the reason I want you to be looking at this form is because in the second hour, which just be a half hour, I'll be talking to you about doing your own taxes. Who here has done their own taxes? We got a few, okay. TurboTax, H&R Block, Did anybody do them manually? Did y'all do them manually? Holy cow, old school, that's what I'm talking about. Okay. Most of the time today, we're going to be doing them electronically on one of the tax programs. And believe me, there's nothing wrong with that. I do that. But we kind of lose focus of what this 1040 looks like. This is the actual tax form for most of us when we file. We want to basically understand this. So it behooves us to look at it, look at some of those deductions, look at the credits, and say, well, yeah, what about me? Why can't I get that? Because here's the truth. The tax system has been put together to benefit the well-connected, the wealthy, and the powerful. That's none of us. Okay? That doesn't mean you and I cannot take advantage of the opportunities that are contained within the tax code. So, learn and review this form, and if you have questions, Google it, shoot me questions, email, but understand that there are opportunities there for you to reduce your taxes. Don't just take it, and don't just sit around and complain about them with your buddies, because again, that accomplishes nothing. Next up, FICA. You're gonna go to work and you're gonna see that FICA coming out. Well, that's paying for Social Security and Medicare, and that's going to come out of your gross paycheck. Even if you put money in your traditional IRA, traditional 401k, you're still going to pay FICA on your gross income. It's very difficult to reduce your FICA, but I'm going to give you one now. 6.2% of your paycheck goes to Social Security. 1.45 goes to Medicare. Totaling 7.65 paycheck after paycheck after paycheck of earned income goes to those taxes. That adds up. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing or it's a good thing, but understand that you're going to pay that. And one way to reduce your FICA tax is to increase your passive income. We've talked about this a little bit. Passive income. Income that you make without actually doing anything for it. There's no earned income. It wasn't a job. You earn money from dividends, capital gains, maybe rental property from real estate, maybe royalties, maybe money off a website. Passive income comes from anything that isn't earned. Think of it that way. A job is earned income. Focus on earning passive income. You will pay no FICA, no Social Security income tax. Big deal. Sales tax. We all pay that. We just act like, yeah, whatever. Yeah. Well, state of Iowa, 6%. Cedar Falls, 1%. 7% is the total sales tax you're going to pay when you buy something in the city of Cedar Falls or Waterloo. And for people out there, you could be paying a much higher sales tax. 8%, 9%, maybe 9.5%. And that's on top of everything that you're buying based off the rules within that state. In the state of Iowa, there are 2 exceptions for sales tax. You don't pay it. Groceries and prescription drugs. Otherwise, sales tax. Now, there might be some exceptions from year to year because somebody's able to weasel their way in to get some special treatment. But those are the 2 exceptions. Each state is going to be a little bit different on this issue. Now, so what? It's like, yeah, just stop paying it. You may be stuck paying sales tax to a point, but think about how you can reduce it. Buy less stuff. Every time you buy something that is not groceries and is not prescription drugs, you are voluntarily paying 7% in this city. and in other places, maybe higher. That's a choice. So when you're thinking about buying something, be sure to add that 7% on top of it. Yes, sir?
When is isn't there like no sales tax weekend or something?
Uh-huh.
Can you just like wait to make any purchases that day?
Yeah. But what do you think's going on there?
They're gonna raise the prices.
That's quite possible. And they're going to get you in the door, right? Because you're thinking, boom, I'm going to get a 7% off, basically. That's what you're thinking. And it's natural to think that way. But what do you think? Do you think there's a better chance of you buying more stuff just because you're in there to get a deal?
No, like let's say you're planning to buy this one big item.
Okay.
And
No, and that's fine. And what I would do is I'd be looking at that item and the price of it months out, right? Because I would be applying my 30-day rule, right? No impulse buys. And I would look at that price. And I would make sure they didn't jack it up come the day of no sales tax, right? But I would go in, you've saved your money, you want to buy it. I'd go in, I'd buy it, I'd get the hell out, right? Because again, we get in that store, oh wow. Happens to any one of us, right? So be very careful of that process. Because of course, you think you're getting a deal, but if you go buy stuff in there that you were not planning on buying, who won? Buy less stuff, eat out less often. Every time you go out to eat, chucking down that sales tax. If you'd have bought that food at the grocery store and ate it, first of all, it probably would have been healthier for you, and you would not have paid that sales tax. That's a big deal. People don't quite factor this issue in, because what else do you pay when you go out to eat besides the sales tax for most of the time? Tip, which is what? How much? Yeah. They're really trying to push it to be 18 now, being kind of universal. 18. 18 plus 7 is 25%. So, when you consider how often you go out to eat, in your mind, is it worth paying 25% more? Think about those issues. You're voluntarily paying more tax by eating out more often, by buying more stuff that you may or may not need. Property tax. When you own a home, you pay property tax. An example here, if you own a $200,000 home, and the property tax was about 1.5%, and this is going to vary from state to state. That's a pretty close approximation in Cedar Falls area. You would pay $3,000 in property tax. That goes to the city for maintenance and whatnot within the city.
a month?
A year. You're going to pay that a year. Okay? How do you reduce some of that? Buy less house. If I had a $300,000 home, well, that jumps. $400,000, it jumps again. So the size of your home is going to decide how much tax you're going to pay. Buy the amount of home that you need. Buy an McMansion. Not wise. Relocate. Yes, sir.
Is that determined on how much land you have or how expensive the house is?
The value of the house.
Just everything.
Mhm.
House.
Next up, relocation. You don't have to live here or there. When you're looking at relocating, when you're looking at getting a job, what are the tax situations in that location? If you're looking at moving to New York City, you better realize they have a city income tax, and a state income tax, and the federal income tax. it's important to understand the property tax rate in that state and then in that city, which you can look all that information up with a simple Google search. Don't think in your mind that property taxes are the same everywhere. They are not. They change from location to location. And the other option is to rent. You can live in that $200,000 home and rent it, and you'll not pay $3,000. The person who owns the property will pay $3,000. Yes, ma'am?
Are there cons to renting a
Oh,
home?
sure. Here's a basic, because next week is the home buying week, and so I don't want to get too much into that, but I will tell you that everybody in our society generally pushes you to buy a home, except Finley. Not a fan. In other words, hey, if you saved your money and you've gotten rid of your debt, it might be time to buy a home if you're going to stay put for a long period of time and you're prepared and you have a strong relationship with your significant other. But if you can't really say all those things, it might be the best thing for you to rent. Because you may be a person who may be moving in the next 2 or 3 years. Big point there is, don't believe the spiel that buying is always the best option. No, it is not. Renting can be the best option in many situations for different people based off your particular situation. Don't let others push you into being a homeowner. So, renting is an option, and you'll save that. Vehicle. This money goes to the state. Let's say I buy a $30,000 vehicle. Brand new vehicle, I feel like a hot shot. I'm going to pay 5% fee in the state of Iowa, which happens to be $1,500. So the first year I register that vehicle, $1,500 plus other basic title and registration fees I will be paying. Now they call it a fee. It's a tax. You can call it a pig. You can call it a piece of grass. I don't care what you call it. It's a tax. Maybe the state feels better by saying it's a fee. 5%. If that 30,000 is a bigger number, well, of course this is going to be bigger. Every single time you go through the buying process, you're going to pay that 5% in the state of Iowa. Some states, it'll be more. Some states, it'll be less. Understand that prior to buying. Do not buy and then show up at registration and go, oh my God. Well, hello? That shouldn't be a surprise. That should be something you've already factored in and saved for. Yes, sir?
Is that just if you buy it from a car dealership or if you buy it from anyone? Like
Any transfer of ownership in the state of Iowa. And that happens every single time you go through the process. For the first year, you will pay that 5% fee. Okay? How can you reduce that? Buy less car. Same with the home option. Just buy less car. Instead of a $30,000 vehicle, you got a $12,000 vehicle. Yes, ma'am?
Shouldn't those minus signs be multiplication signs?
Minus 5%.
yeah, interest rates.
Oh, never mind. I thought you were saying like 20,000 times, like minus 1.5%. I'm like, that does not equal 3,000. So, sorry.
Are we good?
We're good.
Okay. Keep me straight. Okay. Buy less car, also buy less often. What does that mean? That means going through the process of buying maybe once every decade or every other decade. It sounds crazy. Yes.
So when you buy a car, you only have to pay the $1,500 just when you buy it. You don't have to repay all the
Right, but every year, state of Iowa and a lot of states are similar, you're going to pay registration fees based off the value of that car. So if you have an expensive vehicle, it's still going to be high. It's not going to be that 5% high. that's going to be high. Yes.
Is that even if you pay with like insurance money, do you still have to pay like when I got my car, like we used insurance money because my dad told this. So like that money it wasn't really something ours, it was like the insurance companies.
Sure.
So I'm just wondering, you still have to pay
When you register your name, you pay.
no matter what.
Right. And keep in mind too that when you go through this process, every time that you pay that 5%, well, that's 5% you didn't have to pay if you did not purchase the vehicle. Meaning the longer you own a car.
So you'd have to pay sales tax when you purchase the car and 5%?
No, Iowa does not charge sales tax on a car purchase. So each state, again, that's why know these rules before they happen. Again, a very simple Google search on state tax in the state of Pennsylvania or the state of Texas will give you that description of the cost incurred with buying a vehicle in that state. But know those rules prior to doing it. But in many ways, you can think of this as a 5% sales tax. That's basically what it is. And be careful. You ever heard anybody say, we're just going to roll it up in the loan? Dealers are pretty good about that. Yeah, don't worry about it. Or they're going to cover the cost of registration for the first year. That's a good selling point too. You're paying for it. I promise you. And you're probably going to pay interest on that. So when they roll it in, it's rolled in with interest. Don't think you're going to get out of this. The dealer doesn't pay your 5%. You're going to pay it one way or another. Buy less car, buy less often. Gas tax. We have federal gas tax, we have state gas tax. The federal gas tax for all of America is 18.4 cents per gallon. 18.4 cents. State of Iowa is 22 cents. So every time you buy a gallon of gas, you are paying 40.4 cents per gallon in the state of Iowa. And guess what? That's moderately low compared to some other states.
How do we have that Clean Air Act? Is that included? What would that be like? Isn't it like minus like 5 cents per gallon or something?
Yeah. That's a good question. I haven't factored that in. So maybe that helps a little bit. Of course, those subsidies somebody else is paying for, but yeah. So every time you fill up the gas tank, you're paying a certain percent in tax on every gallon. Per state, it's going to be, that's why some states gas is much higher, because their state gas tax is much higher. California being an example of that. So, how do you reduce the gas tax? Well, you drive less often, fuel efficiency, and commuting. So, what am I talking about? Here's what tends to happen for many Americans. Don't let it happen to you. You go in, gas prices, they're relatively low, so you don't care about fuel efficiency. You're not really worried about your commute because, gas is cheap. So you buy this gas guzzler, take it home, 6 months later, gas prices go through the roof. And all of a sudden, you can't afford to go back and forth to work. Well, do you think that just happens by accident? Gas prices go up and down. Factor that in. Here's what I would encourage you to do. Think of the worst gas prices that you've seen, you've heard about. You can look over the history of the last decade. Factor those gas prices in and say, could I afford those with that vehicle? If the answer is no, don't buy that vehicle. Focus on fuel efficiency. Think about your commute. So that goes back to where we live, right? Because that commuting is going to have the biggest impact for most people on the amount of gas and the gas tax you're going to pay. So really think about those issues before buying that vehicle and using that gas. Because again, the point of all of this is we choose to pay a lot of tax based off our behaviors and our choices. Next up, capital gains tax, federal and state. The long-term capital gains tax is 0 to 15% long-term. That's where you've held a capital gain, your stock, your bonds, for 1 year or more. 1 year or more. Short-term, less than 1 year. The tax on short-term is much higher than long-term. Now I say 0, what does that mean? I mean if you're in the 10 or 15% tax bracket, which applies to most of you, you pay 0 capital gains tax. Hello? 0. You win. How do you do that? Buy a home in those pesky things that I call no-load index funds. They're not buying and selling. We're avoiding the smart people. You're not using a broker. You're not using a managed mutual fund that's buying and selling, buying and selling. Because when they're doing that, they're incurring short-term capital gains, which you're going to pay higher taxes on. And they're not even going to beat the index fund in the first place. You see how some of these things start to tie together for us. Again, all of this is the tax situation that's coming at you. You have the opportunity to reduce it, not necessarily eliminate it. We need taxes to make our society go, but you can reduce the tax burden on you and your life. Questions? Okay, get ready for the question of the night. Question is, how much can you make as an individual, filing as an individual in 2013 before paying any federal income tax? What is that number? As an individual, how much can you make up to that amount where it's paying no federal income tax? None. Where does it kick in? One year? Yes, 0% is for 10 to 15% tax bracket, and the tax bracket is above 15%. 45 and up, they pay 15. But 15 is not bad. It's a lot better than the other. Oh, thank you, Mama. And short term, you pay all the way up to 35, whatever your tax bracket is. So it goes up.
No, I think my dad.
Long term.
I was going to do federal taxes. I'm like, yeah, it's like, I'll do
There is no zero. Short term is where you get back. And you're generally going to get those short term capital gains, you know, over the buying and selling. Because they're buying and selling. give away $20 in the second half. Like I said, I'll get you out of here in 30 minutes. Okay, everybody done? Okay, good luck. What's the number? $10,000. $10,000. Okay, good luck. Thomas Graham, $10,000. Congratulations. Well done. That's it. In the second 30 minutes, I'll get started here in a couple minutes. I'll be talking about doing your individual taxes. I'll show you how that happens, how you can go to the site to do it, and some issues to avoid. Okay?